Meet dynamic forms, HubSpot's most underused superpower. And let's just have a moment here where we say goodbye to HubSpot's legacy forms. Let's dive in. So if you're using HubSpot forms with any frequency, you've probably noticed the new forms tool, and yet a lot of teams are still holding on to legacy forms with their dying fingers, or they're using their new ones without really taking advantage of what they can do. So because legacy forms are static, and some people may argue with me a little bit on this point because yes, I know they have progressive profiling, but they're pretty rigid in how they operated, and they show everyone pretty much the same questions, whether those questions apply to them or not. And that's how you end up with really long forms, lots of scrolling, irrelevant fields, and higher abandonment, especially when forms start to feel overwhelming. So on top of that, legacy forms don't give you true multi-step experiences, which makes them a lot harder to guide someone through a form in a way that feels intentional. So, but what if forms only surfaced the questions that actually mattered and looked better while doing it? Well, that's where the new HubSpot forms comes in, especially when you use logic and modern styling together. So why settle for good enough forms when HubSpot now gives you everything you need to build great ones? Forms that adapt, forms that feel shorter, forms that respect the person filling them out. For years, static forms were the norm, but today, sticking with basic forms means leaving better experiences and better data on the table. The new HubSpot Forms tool lets you build dynamic, adaptive form experiences. Instead of showing every field to every person, the form can respond to how someone answers earlier questions. And on top of that, the new forms gives you far more control how your forms look and feel. When used on their own, you can fully style them to match your brand. Spacing, colors, layout, and overall presentation feel much more modern than the legacy forms ever allowed. And if you prefer embedding forms on a page, that's not a problem either because they still embed just like the old ones. Same flexibility, but a much better experience. So I'm going to show you a fun example before we talk about your real lead capture intake forms. It's finally the weekend and your work is done and you're ready to relax. But now the age-old question is, what should we do tonight? So now imagine you decide to turn this into a form for your significant other to fill out. Because naturally, you like to live and breathe HubSpot. So the first question is, what should we do tonight? Should we watch a movie? Should we play a game or invite friends over or go out? And depending on the choices we select, they're completely different follow-up questions. Like if you're going to a movie, what genre? Or if you're going out, where should we go? Or if you're playing a game, what kind? Every time this form is filled out, the path changes based on the first choice. So here's a quick example here. So for this one, I love that we're doing this in HubSpot. This is so great. All right, so what should we do tonight? Should we watch a movie, play a game, invite friends to go out? I'm going to say let's watch a movie. And then you can see based on that question, we're not going down this long list. There's no questions in here on games. It's shifted immediately over to it's movie night. So what genre are you in the mood for? Is it comedy? Definitely. Let's go to action right now. And do you want snacks? Absolutely. I think I have to modify this because I definitely want more than one snack. So I'm going to choose ice cream for this, but I think we definitely want ice cream, chips, candy, and popcorn. And how shall we pick the movie? Wow, I don't know. Let's go with surprise me. And then it's basically taking you to the end of the form. But I'm going to refresh this form, and we're just going to choose a different experience here. So instead of that, let's say, hey, we want to play a game. And now instead of going to movie questions, it's actually starting to ask questions specific on the game. And let's choose strategy and definitely a long game. And let's go with 5+ players. And so you can see here that there are several things that are going on. If you go to invite friends over, do you want a small group, casual hangout, drinks, snacks? and that form completely behaves differently. And in addition to taking you to different sections in the form, another thing that it can do is it can expand on sections in the question. So for example, if you are asking for snacks here, it is opening a different set of questions just based on this answer, not just taking you to a different view, but it's taking you to something different completely. So let's choose another option here. Let's say we're going to go out on the town, and definitely going to go for dessert. And I think I will take, oh man, this is tough. Let's go with cake. And oh man, grab and go, why not? And so you can see here that this entire form experience is completely different based on how you answer the questions on this. And we've seen some real success when it comes to events and finding out who is coming to your booth, for example, asking some questions, narrowing down their personas, and taking them through a question and answer path that is very specific to their persona, just using questions like this. So how do we build this form? Well, I'm not going to get into how we styled it, but I just want to kind of give you a real glimpse into how to build the logic. So for starters here, you can see that we have a number of steps. So each one of these windows here is a step. This is step 1. And if I just scroll to the right, you'll see step 2 and step 3 and step 4 and so on and so forth all the way to the end of our form. And if we go back here, we can build our logic rules to help guide that experience through this form. And if you go here to the logic, you'll be able to see all of the different rules that are powering this form experience. And so if you select any of these, I'm just going to show you a couple of them here. So for example, if on step 1 you choose play a game, I'm going to go ahead and edit this rule. So if somebody chooses on step 1 play a game, then it's going to take them from step 1 to step 3. So once they select this and select next, it's going to take them to step 3 of our form, which is our game on side of our questions here on our form. And obviously all of the rest of our rules that we built out to power this, and you can add all kinds of logic to this. So based on any of the inputs that you have and any of these steps here, you can then use that to make decisions. So it can show fields, it can hide fields, it can skip to steps, as we've done quite a bit here in this example. And then it can also choose how you redirect people. If you want to redirect them to a HubSpot page, an external URL, or potentially even a payment link, depending on what the answers are to this set of questions that you've asked. So it's really flexible, and it can really change the dynamics of your form experience inside of HubSpot in ways that we just could not do before. So let's talk about the legacy form problem. So in a legacy HubSpot form, once you ask that first question, the relevant follow-up questions can change. And if you're watching a movie, we shouldn't be scrolling past restaurant questions. If we're playing a game, why do we need to be asked whether we want to watch a comedy or a drama? Legacy forms just can't adapt in the way that the new form tool can. They just stack everything up on a single page. It leads to longer forms, more scrolling, higher drop-off rates, and just an overall much more dismal customer experience. Instead of forcing everyone through the same long form, only asking relevant questions, hiding irrelevant fields, visitors can stay engaged, submissions are more complete, and the data you collect is far more reliable. The form finally feels like it was built for the person filling it out, not just the system behind it. We've worked extensively with HubSpot forms across a wide range of teams and use cases, and we've seen where legacy forms break down, where the new forms tool really shines, and how much of a difference logic and presentation can make together. The gap between a static form and a smart dynamic form is bigger than most teams expect. Teams using logic-based forms consistently see higher completion rates, fewer abandoned submissions, cleaner, more usable data, less follow-up required from sales or support. Because people are far more likely to finish a form when it feels shorter, looks better, and only ask questions that apply specifically to them. So now you've seen how dynamic HubSpot forms actually work, let's talk about what that means day to day. Once you move away from static legacy forms, improvements show up almost immediately, both for visitors and your internal teams. The direct benefits: shorter feeling forms, higher completion rates, more relevant submissions, a more modern, polished experience. Some of the indirect benefits are better lead routing, more reliable automation, less cleanup work, and faster follow-up. And from emotional benefits perspective, it's less frustration for visitors, more confidence in your data, and forms that finally feel intentional. So when teams delay making this shift, things don't just stay the same, they usually get worse. Forms keep underperforming, drop-offs continue, and bad data compounds. The longer legacy forms stay live, the more cleanup work you're creating for later. And that leads to the real danger. Visitors abandon forms before submitting. Sales receives partial or misleading information. Automations fire inconsistently or maybe not at all. And teams compensate manually for broken inputs. It's friction disguised as that's just how forms work. So now that you've seen where legacy forms fall short, and you're probably thinking, all right, I'm ready to switch, but where do I actually start? Well, that's a great question. And the good news is getting started is easier than you might think. Start with just one form to improve. Maybe it's a contact form or a lead capture form or a service request or an intake form. You might choose a form with high abandonment or one that feels simple to clean up quickly. There's really not a wrong answer here. The goal is just to experience the difference that logic and better design can make. And here's just a quick pro tip. Before building out, take a few minutes to map out your form flow and decide which questions depend on earlier questions and group them logically. A quick outline up front makes building fast, clean, and a whole lot less frustrating. And here's the exciting part. You'll see the impact immediately. Visitors will complete forms faster, your data improves instantly, and your team stops filling in those gaps manually. Once you build your first logic-powered form, you won't want to go back.